Hey everybody, how's it going? We're running a little behind, that's okay, but after this song, your Ben Joravsky show for Friday, June 12th begins.
Correct. Correct.
Guys, I just saw Ben Joravsky headbang.
It's good stuff, man. I'm humbled that our little show would have such a great contributor. I mean,
I'm speechless as far as thanking Michael Girardi for these songs that he makes, man. It's so cool. Thank you so much, man.
I mean, it's just good rock and roll, but it's the lyrics are good. You guys like Neil Young, man.
And if anyone's listening out there hating on Girardi, well, you make a song and send it to us. How about that, huh?
So wait, time out.
BennyJShow@gmail.com.
Does he play the drums too?
I think so. Like we were talking when the mics were off. It may be a drum machine. Not trying to make it sound bad or anything, but no, it sounds like a drum machine. Maybe Michael Girardi. Do you use a drum machine or are you playing the actual drums? Let us know. But he does everything. Michael Girardi. He's the man. If you know of a band or you make music and you want to make music for the Ben Joravsky show, we'd love to play it. Just don't sue us. That's the only thing we got. You know?
Don't sue us.
We're broke, dude. Don't sue us, and we'll play your music. BennyJShow@gmail.com. BENNY, the letter J, show @gmail.com. Michael Girardi has like 4 or 5 songs now.
No, he's awesome, man.
What's next, Michael? I keep pushing him. You know what I mean? What's the next one, huh? What do you want to write about? Police officer sleeping in Bobby Rush's office?
Oh, my God.
That'd be a good one to talk about.
Looking at this front page in my beloved Bright One right now.
How about one about Pritzker, huh? A rock song about Pritzker?
We have a lot of Pritzker news coming up. Tease.
Yeah, we actually do. All right, so let's get today's show going here without further ado. Today's Ben Joravsky show for Friday, June 12th is moments away. But before we do this, Let's thank the following unions for sponsoring this program. Unions like the International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers, Local 126 and District 8.
That's correct.
The International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local 9 are sponsors.
That's correct.
As well as the International Union of Operating Engineers, Local 150. Hey, unions, thanks. You're awesome. Couldn't do it without you. And, of course, today, we could do it without you, but we'd be broke as hell. And, of course, today's Ben Joravsky Show is brought to you by our good friends at the Chicago Federation of Labor.
Big problems become big problems when you let small problems sit.
Oh, yeah, man.
Yeah. All right, Ben, give us a song of the day. I guess we're done asking the live stream audience to do song of the day, so we're going back to you again.
Well, just after hearing that, you said it was like Neil Young, so how about Southern Man? Southern Man, better take your boo. I love Southern. Angry Neil Young.
The record continues, by the way, for those who may have missed a few Ben Joravsky shows. Not once has Ben sang a song well.
No, remember the one song I sang? You actually sang that, tried to sing that well. It was a Jerry Butler song. I remember, what was it? I forget which song it was. It was maybe Western Union Man, send a telegram. I love Jerry Butler.
Oh, my life. The Ben Joravsky Show starts now. Thank goodness it is Friday, June 12th. Yes, that's the brown line. And still, live from Ben's attic, this is the Ben Joravsky Show. Today on the program, it's another Rummana Rundown with Chicago Sun-Times editor, Rummana Hussain. And now your host, Chicago Reader columnist Ben Joravsky.
Hello, everybody. Ben Joravsky here. We're calling this Trump Waiver Friday, and here's why. Well, folks, I knew I was going to talk about this from the moment I saw it last night. This one beats it all. Donald Trump, the man you decided should be the president of the United States, heck of a job, America, has decided that the COVID-19 pandemic is over. Even though I just got this update in my phone that says the number of cases are new all-time highs, like in Texas, Florida, and California. But Donald Trump has said it's over. Well, it's a little more nuanced thing that he has said, to be fair to young Donald Trump. What he's essentially said is he's sick and tired of hanging around the White House, doing the Rose Garden strategy. It really wasn't working anyway. If you recall, Donald Trump had already started off doing his rallies, his campaign appearances in big halls that he fills with his MAGA hat-loving, adoring fans, and they would cheer at all his lines and all his jokes, and he would make fun of Democrats, and he would make fun of liberals, and he would make fun of people like me and you, the listeners here, and everybody would yell and cheer, and he thought that was the ticket to getting reelected. Not quite sure what the strategy is there, but anyway, he thought that was the ticket to getting reelected. And of course, the pandemic hit, and he had to retreat, had to call off the rallies. Well, he's tired of having to stay at the White House all the time. He's tired with the Rose Garden strategy. And the Rose Garden strategy of course, was the one where he was in charge of the country's response to the pandemic. He did a wretched job on that front, as we all know, among other things. I guess the lower the high, depending on how you're ranking the wretched job, was when he urged Americans to consider using bleach, a disinfectant, to treat the COVID. Maybe we can look into that. We analyzed that one. That's, of course, because he doesn't listen to everything that the scientists and the experts tell him before he did the daily briefings, and he would just go and sort of blurt out whatever came to his mind. So anyway, Donald Trump, it was a horrific job that he did. He was falling into polls. He got tired of being alone in the White House. He needed to bask in the love of his adoring fans. And so he said, that's it. I'm going back to the rallies. And the first one he's going to hold, it'll be in Tulsa, Oklahoma on June 19th. Now, there's a lot of wretched symbolism in having the rally in Tulsa. Tulsa was the site of riot, a white riot back in 1919, I believe it was, in which the business section of the black community was eradicated by Greenwood, I believe is the name of the community, the Black Wall Street of Tulsa. I think over 300 people were killed in that riot. So it's to say it's a sensitive site is putting it mildly. He's doing it on June 18th, the day, of course, of emancipation, and a very important day in the history of African Americans, black people in this country. Now, I think, this is my opinion, Donald Trump is essentially taking two middle fingers to the sky, raising them to the sky, to the Black Lives Matter movement, to the protesters in the streets, by having it his opening rally in Tulsa, by having it on June 19th. It's his way of saying he does not care about the issues that the protesters are raising. He does not care about the whole string of killings by black people at the hands of police. He does not care about the George Floyd killing. He does not care about all the efforts by legislators, mayors, governors, city council people throughout the country to deal with like 400 years of wretched race relations in this country. He doesn't care. He just wants to use the entire, controversy as a way of rallying his supporters to the notion that they have nothing to be apologetic for, that they have nothing to change, that it's okay to keep the names of Confederate generals on United States military bases, that it's okay to fly the Confederate flag at NASCAR racing events, that it's okay just to perpetuate the notion that the Civil War was waged by the Confederacy. The Confederacy left the Union because they wanted to defend state rights as opposed to defending slavery. All these hideous notions that are sort of at the heart of what we're trying to confront with racism and discrimination and segregation. Our whole lifetime of people like me, I've lived in this country my whole life, dealing with the fallout of 400 years of really it's the aftermath of slavery. Donald Trump wants to pretend like it doesn't exist, and anybody who says it does is unpatriotic. Anybody who says it does is misguided. So he's going to go to Tulsa on June 19th and have a rally and just basically put those two middle fingers to the sky. Let everybody knows what he thinks about the protests, the protesters, etc. And now here's the interesting thing. Anybody who shows up at that center in Tulsa, he's asking them to sign a waiver. Now, I know he's basically saying that there's no need to be worried about COVID-19 anymore. He says there's no need to wear a mask. He's not going to require anybody to wear a mask who comes to the convention center to watch his rally. He is not going to employ any social distancing. People can sit right on top of each other if they want to. He's going to squeeze as many people in there as he can. He's already declared that he does not want to have to look out in front of an auditorium and see empty seats. He wants to see people in every seat. He wants to bask in the cheers of a jam-packed stadium because that's what's going to make him feel good about himself and his presidency. So that's what he wants to see. And he doesn't want people to, he's essentially declaring in that action that the pandemic is over and people have nothing to fear. But just in case, anybody who goes to that rally has to sign a waiver. Like, where's the language on the waiver? I wrote it down somewhere. Here we go. He's got his lawyers drafting this thing. You got to sign this. By attending the rally, you and any of your guests are voluntarily assuming all risks related to exposure to COVID-19 and agree not to hold Donald J. Trump for President, Inc., Bach Center, ASM Global, or any of their affiliates, directors, officers, employees, etc., liable for any illness or injury. So he wants to have it two ways. He wants to declare that the virus has been eradicated, and that it's his leadership that destroyed it and made us safe again. And at the same time, he wants you to sign away your rights to sue him, just in case you get the virus while going to his rally, because, of course, it's not been eradicated. And Donald Trump is endangering the lives of his supporters by cramming them into a facility to listen to his oration. And by the way, he's doing the same thing with his convention speech. The Republican Party had cut a deal with North Carolina. They were going to have the convention in North Carolina, but the governor of North Carolina, Roy Cooper, did not want to agree to allow the Republicans to have a convention without social distancing protocol. And Donald Trump, again, was insisting he wanted to look out and see a room filled, an arena filled with people. He didn't want to have to see empty seats. He didn't want to have to see the evidence of social distancing. He didn't want to see people with masks on. So he didn't want any kind of social distancing requirements or precautions taken. He didn't want the Republicans to be forced to do that. So he found these suckers in Jacksonville, Florida, who bowed to all his requests. And so now he's going to give his speech in Jacksonville, Florida. Apparently, they're going to still have the convention in North Carolina. I don't know. There's probably some contractual deals that they signed with the state of North Carolina that I would love to see an investigation of this, by the way. They got to keep the pretense that the convention's in North Carolina, but the big speech will be in Jacksonville, where the dummies of Florida have said, sure, come on down, pack the hall. They'll probably make everybody sign a waiver.
Hey, if you live in Florida, keep listening, all right? Please. We need the downloads.
We do need the downloads, but come on, Florida. Basically, Donald Trump has said, you're the dumbest state in the union. Yeah, and your governor, DeSantis, come on down. Jacksonville, come on down. Fill the auditorium. We don't care if we get COVID. Go ahead. Pack the place. Trump says, I don't want, everybody's got to sit next to each other, no empty seats, no masks. I want to give this notion that we're a strong nation and no little virus can deter us. But by the way, sign this waiver just in case so you can't sue me. But interesting, by the way, I was reading this. It doesn't say you can't sue Donald Trump. You just can't sue Donald Trump for president. Donnie, I think you should. You know what? It's been all downhill for Donnie Trump on the lawyer front since he fired Michael Cohen. Should have kept Cohen as his lawyer. Cohen would have done a better job, I think, of writing a waiver agreement. By the way, and this is also something I just saw just as we were coming on the air, D. Melania Trump's story is breaking about a new book about Melania Trump. Did you see this one? That on the, got to give her credit. Donnie's third wife, is it his third wife? I can't recall. Frank, how many wives has Donald Trump? How many divorces has he been through? I think he's been on his third marriage. Anyway. When he assumed the White House, when he assumed the president, she used that moment for a little leverage. Gotta give her credit there, a little leverage.
All of our listeners with 3 wives, please don't tune out.
Listeners with 3 wives and who live in the state of Florida. Yeah, a lot of dummies in the state of Florida. Hey, come on down. We'll get the virus. We don't care. Anything to cheer for Trump, and we'll sign the waiver. Florida, what a state. Anyway, so Melania, was squeezing Donald Trump, using the leverage she had to get a more favorable prenup agreement. I guess she'd already signed one, so she amended the agreement. What a first family. So, I think Melania's lawyers should have drafted the waiver. I'm just saying, this waiver, I'm going to ask Jimmy Coogan to be coming in the studio. I think this waiver is wide open for somebody to sue Donald Trump. It doesn't say you can't sue Donald Trump. You just can't sue his campaign. It's Donald Trump who's going around saying, pack the joint. It's Donald Trump who's saying, don't wear masks.
I'm not a doctor.
Yeah, that's for sure. You're not a doctor, but you certainly have a lot of lawyers on staff. So anyway, so that's it. Donald Trump wants to hold rallies. He wants to hold rallies in stadiums filled with his cheering fans, his adoring fans. He doesn't want any face masks. He doesn't want any kind of precautions, no social distancing precautions whatsoever. And he doesn't want to have to be hit with lawsuits from anybody who gets the disease, because guaranteed, some of those people who packed those stands to cheer on Donald Trump, despite his racism, are going to get this disease. I can guarantee it, folks. MAGA, Donald Trump has just given you the middle finger. We got a great show today, everybody. Rummana Hussain. I was talking to Rummana before the show, and I asked her this question. What is more irritating to you, white guilt or white racism? And she said, well, I have to go with white racism. I thought that was a good response. But she's also irritated a little bit by white guilt. So a fun conversation of sorts, if you can have any fun at this time, with Rummana Hussain. All the news of the day, including this story. I know Dennis is going to get into it. We talked about it yesterday. Bobby Rush, so the police sleeping in Bobby Rush's office. I'm holding up the Chicago Sun-Times right there for everyone. Ooh.
That's you, dude.
Did I get a text?
Let's
It's Frank. Trump has been divorced twice. Thank you, Frank. I didn't have my. I guess I had my phone on. Thank you,
I
Frank.
guess,
Yeah,
huh? Oh, good guess.
Kinda. Yeah. So anyway, Rummana Hussain will be here. We talking about all the news. Also, we're talking about the new, like the rebellion going on in newsrooms throughout the country. I was gone. We were gone last week, so we didn't get to talk about this. But newsroom, New York Times, Pittsburgh Gazette, younger reporters come in with whole different attitudes about the relationship with editors.
Interesting. I didn't read that. Well, I wonder if our newsrooms like that. Hold on, let me check. You said there's rebellion, right?
Yeah.
Hold on.
Hey, is there rebellion going on?
I don't think so.
No, Dennis runs the newsroom in with an iron fist.
Hold on.
Hey, give me a coffee.
Kind of tired today.
Yeah, our newsroom. There's a song that exemplifies Dennis's relationship with our newsroom. It's called "Under
Love,
Dennis's
Sweet
Thumb."
Love.
No, it's "Under Dennis's Thumb." There's a newsroom. You know that song, D?
No.
Rolling Stones, man. Come on, D. Anyway, the young man.
More
from
of a
Alton.
Thin Lizzy guy.
The young man from Alton, the man they call Dr. Doobie with the news.
Not a doctor. How's it going, everybody? Before we find out what's happening in Chicago and or Illinois for the fourth and final time this week, it's Friday, and that means I need to remind all of you about this weekend's Benny J bonus interviews. Yes, while we're away, there's still interviews to play. This Saturday, Sunday, and Monday at 5 a.m., a brand new or Benny J classic interview available for download only at both Chicago Sun-Times and Chicago Reader websites and wherever else you download your favorite podcast. Take us with you on your weekend journey, cleaning the house, going for a jog, or even sitting on your arse doing nothing at all. We suggest you download our Benny J bonus interviews. Ben, what do we got in store for the people this weekend?
Well, Atiba Buchanan and David Seaton. We had a great conversation yesterday about politics, a lot of national politics, Trump, Biden, that kind of talk, with the two hosts of WVON Talk Show. Very popular segment on our show. That we've already recorded that. After today, we'll do two interviews. Jim Coogan, the aforementioned Jim Coogan, will be coming in to talk about Trump's crimes. I think I'm going to ask him about this waiver. You know, how valid is this waiver? I mean, how ironclad is it as a protection if someone sues Donald Trump for getting COVID? So lots of legal news to talk about with Jim Coogan. And then Del Marie Cobb will be in, a good friend of our show, talking about all political issues of the day. So a lot of political talk. What else on the Ben Joravsky Show?
What about that waiver? Find out with Jim Coogan, Del Marie Cobb, and more this weekend on the Benny J bonus interviews. All right, local news. Let's go. For the second day in a row, no public events scheduled for our Illinois governor, J.B. Pritzker. Not sure what you got going on, sir. Bet you're a little, maybe JB's on a little private vacation right now. What about that?
Doesn't he have the hurt leg?
Well, I was going to say, JB, please put some ice on that femur, whatever you're doing, all right? We don't want a femur gate happening again like last year. Boy, that took like a month off his schedule.
Yeah. Wait, time out. Does he have I forgot. He does not have, that was a joke that you made, right?
What?
That he has a hurt leg. He does not have currently a hurt leg.
No,
Okay.
but last year, I remember there was one day where he went to Tennessee, then flew all the way back to Springfield.
What do you go to Tennessee for?
Who knows? He's a billionaire. I can't relate. And then he goes all the way and walks in a parade, then goes to the state fair. Hey, feller, calm down. All right, put some ice on that femur. We need a governor.
out, man.
We need a healthy governor. You know what I mean? All right, but hey, Ben, I have a little Friday surprise for you.
Uh-oh.
That's not the response I was expecting. Uh-oh, he says. Now, for our new listeners to the podcast, back in our WCU Later AM radio days, yes, before Ben was fired, it was one of our favorite things to do. Play and critique other Illinois radio stations' interviews with Illinois elected officials.
Governor J.B. Pritzker is with us live this afternoon. Governor, we greatly appreciate your time. Great to talk to you this afternoon.
Great to talk to you, Jim. Great to be here.
Illinois elected officials that, for, let's face it, good reason, wouldn't appear on our program.
In a million years. Oh, God.
All right, so what you just heard there was audio from WMAY 94.7 FM, 97 or 970 AM in Riverton.
Where's Riverton?
Have you ever been?
No, I've never heard of it.
Never been to Riverton, huh? Well, it's 3 hours south of Chicago, near Decatur.
You ever
Illinois.
been there?
No, I've never been.
That guy's got a good radio voice.
I know, yeah. So far, I don't know.
That guy's
good.
really, I mean, play the dude again, man. He was like,
Governor J.B. Pritzker is with us live this afternoon. Governor, we greatly appreciate your time. Great to talk to you this afternoon.
Great to talk to you, Jim. Great to be here.
Did you notice that how he inflected?
How he's kind of
live?
better than you.
Oh, yeah, it doesn't take much. That live. That's something like I've never learned. You know what I'm saying? That people who went to radio school really good at that. You know, that live, like the butter cow. That butter cow. I gotta learn how to do that, D.
Yeah.
With me is Dr. D from Alton. You know what I mean? You got to do that high inflection. All right, come on. Let's get our radio voices down.
Let's get your radio voice down. Holy crap. You think I actually talk like this?
It's the butter cow, which has 9 hearts to represent the 9 essential nutrients in milk. That's right, it's made entirely out of butter, and it's a state fair tradition since at least 1922.
That's correct.
That's how you do it. That inflection, okay? I'm going to work on that.
All right, so
Since
like I said,
1922.
Riverton, 3 hours south, near Decatur, Illinois.
Decatur. I've been to Decatur.
Have you?
Through it.
Really?
Yeah.
Did you see the Decatur Gator?
No.
That's a thing I just made up. Governor Pritzker
Trying to trick me, huh? Oh, you thought you were slick.
He gave an interview to the feller you've heard about 4 or 5 times there, Jim Leach, in the Jim Leach Afternoon Show. As you heard, he's for sure a radio guy. All right, so we know that much already. This is indeed not Jim Leach's first radio rodeo.
No. He was born tonight, but he wasn't born last night.
All right, now let's see here. This is a much-needed interview, if you ask me, for all of us in Illinois, because we haven't had any daily COVID-19 updates from Governor Pritzker all week. And, well, after thousands gathered together with no social distancing whatsoever for the George Floyd protest in Chicago and in several other cities across the state, and while we've been living under Governor Pritzker's 5-phase strategy to reopen Illinois, well, one question's been on my mind personally. So what damn phase are we in now?
I forgot.
We were in 3.
We were in 3?
We're in 3.
We're in 3. 3
right?
started in June 1st, correct?
Right. A lot of questions need to be answered here. So let's get to the interview. Listeners, take notes. Shout out to WMAY in Riverton, Illinois. And make no mistake, old Jay Leach wants to get right into this interview.
Well, I want to jump right into it. I know you're hearing these calls constantly from our mayor here in Springfield, lawmakers, the entire Senate Republican caucus sent you a letter yesterday, all saying reopen the state more quickly. We're scheduled to go to phase 4 on June 26th after 28 days. They say we could do this in 14 days as early as tomorrow. So what's your response?
Well, I created the Restore Illinois plan, and it was put together with public health experts, and it relies on lifting mitigation measures in a phased approach to ensure that, there's no rise in case positivity rates or hospitalizations. And all along here, I have used a medically driven approach. And sticking to that plan has led to Illinois being the first state in the nation to hit the federal White House metrics for reopening. It makes perfect sense to me that we ought to continue to follow this plan. We're on the right track. We've got to make sure that we have incubation periods that are followed. And then, I just point out that if anybody does a Google search on the other states and spikes, what you'll find is that many other states are now experiencing spikes because they didn't follow a plan.
We've been, as you noted, following the plan, and we're seeing some good results from it.
This guy's good.
A lot of focus on the 14 versus the 28 days. Why, again, have you felt the need to have each phase run longer than what a lot of other states or a lot of other experts have said is the standard?
Well, let me remind you that the 14 days that people are referring to have been the requirement of the 14 days has been that there's a decline over every one of the 14 days before you could move to the next phase. What we required was simply a maintenance, not decline, but just making sure we're staying at the same rate, stability in each of the numbers. And so that's one reason why there is a longer period associated with it. I think in this case, and we have 15 days until all of the regions, which seem all to be heading in the right direction, 15 days until all of the regions will move into phase 4, that, we have to stay the course here to make sure that, the Memorial Day gatherings that occurred, many people not wearing masks, getting together, and then the, protests that occurred over the last week and a half, that we don't see over the next 14 days an incubation that leads to a spike in hospitalizations and case rates.
As you noted, the metro.
There you go.
Yeah, no, he did. I got to give him credit with that interview where he actually listened to what J.B. Pritzker had said, and when he did the follow up. A little tip here for all you youngsters out there thinking of a career in journalism. He actually listened to what J.B. Pritzker said and incorporated it into his next question. So is that a friend of yours, D? Jay Leach?
No.
Oh,
Why would he be a friend of
I don't
mine?
know. He's just, all of a sudden.
Oh, do this. Oh.
So, yeah. It's classic, though. The whole thing. Listen, man, I am so. How do I put this? I have, as far as I'm concerned, Republicans have absolutely no credibility. Most Republicans have no credibility in the whole issue of COVID-19. This notion that somehow or other J.B. Pritzker has gone too far with 28 as opposed to 14, that the state should be opened up. That Donald Trump should be free to have rallies where people don't have to wear masks. People get to sit on top of each other. There's no social distance requirements whatsoever. Oh, by the way, and sign the waiver. So right there and then tells you everything you need to know about Republicans. So when he brought up the fact that the Republican legislators had signed a letter, can we open the window and throw it out? Because the Republicans from the get-go have turned this into a partisan affair. And of course, we're supposed to be a country united to try to deal with this very serious pandemic. And we've talked about this a lot, D. The notion of a pandemic, I think America on many different levels just got tired of paying attention to you and I are still dutifully up here in the attic overlooking the alley, but I would say it's pretty obvious that most Americans, the pandemic at the very least, to put it mildly, was like of second significance. So now it's like we're emerging back and realizing we're emerging from the last couple weeks of protests and Memorial Day gatherings. She's absolutely correct. Or a lot of people just got together, broke all protocol just to go have a barbecue. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So now we're like, oh, yeah, this pandemic is still out there. I guess we got to go back to paying attention to it again, except for Donald Trump, President of the United States. He's decided it's over. So as far as I'm concerned, the Republicans have absolutely no credibility in this issue. So I don't know. To say in a question of J.B. Pritzker, well, the Republican legislators wrote this letter. J.B. could have easily said, why would you care about anything they say? By the way, did Darren Bailey sign the letter? Big feller. Nobody talks about him anymore.
Darren Bailey's off, taking care of his goats.
Darren Bailey's
who's going to feed them hogs? He's got to go take care of that.
He's cashing those checks. No hogs, man. He's getting money.
All right, WMAY, if you're listening, all right, just check this out, all right? I am available for part-time work.
That's why we're playing a thing. Yeah.
You're listening to WMAY. Right now, Jay Leach with J.B. Pritzker. It's 35 after the hour. News, weather, and traffic coming up. Take it away, Jay Leach.
We've been, as you noted, following the plan, and we're seeing some good results from it. A lot of focus on the 14 versus the 28 days. Why, again, have you felt the need to have each phase run longer than what a lot of other states or a lot of other experts have said is the standard?
Well, let me remind you that the 14 days that people are referring to have been the requirement of the 14 days has been that there's a decline over every one of the 14 days before you could move to the next phase. What we required was simply a maintenance.
All right. Just found out we played this one already.
I actually listened to the clips.
I got a lot going on here, man.
It's all right, man. It's the end of a long week, and that porta potty is really like beaming out things to me. Yeah, no,
I got more though.
Okay,
there is
okay.
more. I do have more. You just got to hang tight with me, all right?
That was like a David Glowads moment when Mr. Bike goes, Dennis, play a GB on 14 days.
Definitely be editing that one out.
Yes, the live streamers, you get to hear stuff like this. The podcast people don't even know it happened.
All right, so what we're listening to is J.B. Pritzker's interview on WMAY.
WMAY.
There you go. You're getting better.
I'm getting better. WMAY, over the porta potty in the alley. Let's go live to J.B. Pritzker.
Okay, now I think you're making fun of Jay
I'm
Leach.
not, man. Come on, you know, I wish I had a good radio voice.
All right, do we hear this? Hold on.
We've been, as you noted, following the plan, and we're seeing some good results from it.
Yeah, we heard this.
A lot of focus on.
All right.
You got to give me credit. I mean, I actually listened to the clips. You got to give me a lot of credit.
Yeah, and
for
you
that
have to
one.
give me no credit whatsoever.
No, come on.
Had a little audio issue
Yeah,
there.
that's all right.
Joravsky, your thoughts so far on this WMAY interview? But I think we're going to just completely
Let's move on to the
leave.
next slide. I pretty much exhausted my thoughts on this interview. So let's move on. It's just a great job, Jay Leach. He's got a good radio voice.
Jay Leach, hey, WMAY. I guess I didn't
Let me
get
ask
the
you a
job
question. Put you on the spot here.
there. Okay.
Do you like listening to radio voices? I mean, people say you have a nice radio voice. The sound of the voice. I'm not talking about the sound of the voice. I'm talking about the way radio people are trained to speak. You know, that crisp delivery, and then the inflections up, and you know, the butter cow. Oh no, it's not butter cow. It's 1922. I'm not quite sure what they're trying to do with the 1922 part. But anyway, what's your thoughts about radio delivery?
I don't know. It's like a fine balance, right? Too much is like, ooh, this is a little corny. Too little is like, who the hell is on this radio right now? Right? So you kind of got to have that balance, right? Okay. Got to be a little casual, but not a little too professional, you know? I think Jay Leach is like just amazing.
Oh, the train just went by. That's something Jay Leach never has to deal with at WMAY, the brown line going by.
Yeah, or some crummy producer messing up the clips.
Oh, it's all good.
Right,
it's all good.
All right, let's move on here. Let's go to WBEZ's and Dan Mihalopoulos.
Young Daniel.
A good friend of the Ben Joravsky Show. The real Greek freak, if you ask me. WBEZ's Dan Mihalopoulos reports that Governor J.B. Pritzker has hired 35 people from a list recommended by House Speaker Michael Madigan. Ben Joravsky, please tell me, what is the definition of insanity?
Oh, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. Am I correct?
Yeah. Interesting.
That's spontaneity, dude. That's improv.
Interesting.
Okay, I had to just do that, all right? Hey, can the guy
Why
at WMAY do that?
bragging about it? Just do it, be modest, and let's move on. As Pritzker won the election in 2018 and was sworn into office.
Hold on.
What?
Let me do it the way you would do it on radio. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results.
As Pritzker won the election in 2018 and was sworn into office last year, Madigan's office sent him the names of scores of job seekers in the positions in state government they desired. Madigan's successful recommendations far outnumbered those from other legislative leaders, with records showing new governor made nearly 36 hires and board appointments off the speaker's clout list. Deputy Governor Christian Mitchell. We know him.
Yes, Christian Mitchell used to come on the show time from time. Then he got too busy. But remember he got. I'm really too busy to come on your radio.
Well, I didn't want to say anything,
you know,
but
he's like, since he got that promotion, I'm just too busy.
And I didn't want to say anything. I was going to probably upset you.
Yeah, Pritzker's people don't really come on this show. Have you ever noticed
Christian
that?
Mitchell has an interview with Jay Leach. I'm just kidding. All right.
Christian Mitchell really like your suit. No, I'm just kidding.
Deputy Governor Christian Mitchell pushed back at WBEZ's story, saying it is, quote, belittling of qualified folk. In an 8-part tweet, he wrote, quote, the entire premise of WBEZ's report is that qualified, often career public servants, most with advanced degrees, many of whom, like Tiffany Newburn Johnson and Dr. Carmen Ayala and Carrie Zalewski, are women of color, were selected not because of their merits, but because they appeared on One Man. Ben, you read this. Your thoughts?
Yeah, first of all, I give young Daniel credit. I thought it was a great story. Christian Mitchell doesn't give Danny credit. But the funny thing is, I read the whole tweet by Christian Mitchell. It was like, did you say it was an 8-part tweet? Mm-hmm. And so he starts off by lauding WB. I love WBEZ. WBEZ is just, we could not exist without it. And then Danny Mailopoulos sucks. That's what the second part of the thing, you know. So, all right, here's the notion. Here's the issue, folks. Are these employees, have they been hired strictly because Michael Joseph Madigan recommended that they be hired, or was his recommendation just one of many factors in J.B. Pritzker hiring him? Christian Mitchell would say it was just one of many factors. Young Dan Mialopoulos, I don't know if Dan would come right out and say this because, you know, he's old school reporter, and old school reporters hesitate to make pronouncements. So they'll say, well, just look at the facts, Ben. You know, more people. I started doing a Dan Mialopoulos imitation right in the middle of this. So, you know, he would just say, just look at the facts that more people recommended by Madigan got the jobs than any other legislator. So that in of itself, you know, is the point I want to make. So, yeah, I would say as a guy who read the story and has followed politics, that Michael Joseph Madigan's recommendation plays a big role. Absolutely. Anybody who doubts that is kidding themselves or trying to fool you. And why shouldn't it play a big role? He is the Speaker of the House. He is the chairman of the Democratic Party. This notion that somehow or other Democrats are going to be above politics is foolish. In fact, some of the nominees I saw were Republicans who voted with the Democrats to break up the budget stalemate left over by Rauner. So I have no problem with a Republican getting that. Those guys took the hard vote. One of the few Republicans with any guts in this state. So the Democratic Party of Illinois has effectively rewarded them. And yes, J.B. Pritzker and Michael Madigan are both part of the Democratic Party of Illinois. Absolutely, yes. Partisan politics plays a role in this. The Democrats won the governor's mansion, so they get to appoint these key positions, people to fill these positions, and they're essentially going to follow the dictates of Pritzker and Madigan. Now, a guy like me would never, ever, ever get appointed to anything that J.B. Pritzker, a guy with a big mouth who's a troublemaker, who denounces tips.
Yeah, you're no Jay Leach.
Okay. I can't even do the inflection right. Dr. D. You know what I'm saying, D? So, you know, yes, everybody appointed by Pritzker has been approved. This is how the process works, people. Dan Mialopoulos is just pointing out how the process works. I think he did a good job. This is how the process worked. Like the universe of people who will be approved for any state board or job, like any city board or job, is a finite group. You don't want troublemakers. You want kind of people who you can depend, who will go along with you, who will follow your lead, who will, you know, understand how the game is played. To quote, who was it? Kenny Davis said, you're going to pick and choose what hill you're going to die on. You know, guys like me are dying on the smallest little hills in the world. So you need go-along types generally. And the people on that list are go-along types.
I heard Mark Brown's dying on Cricket Hill. That's the hill he's going
Brown,
on.
That's a subtle little joke there. We'll get into Mark Brown in a little while, whether he did those 15. So absolutely, Michael Madigan had a say in. Anybody who thinks, as Christian is sort of suggesting, that this is a meritocracy is as foolish as anyone who thinks that the NFL, the National Football League, is a meritocracy. To a certain degree, it's who you know and who you've won over and who likes you.
I thought you were about to finish that with something else, something dirty.
No,
who you know and who.
I was not going there. All right.
right.
Hey, I'm a pro. I'm like that guy at WMAY.
His name's Jay Leach.
Okay,
Jay, if you're listening, if you need a producer, I don't know. I can work part-time.
You know what? You keep saying Jay Leach, it throws me because a guy my age, we think of Robin Leach, which is way before
Lifestyles of the rich and famous.
Wow, I gotta give you credit for knowing that.
Hello.
Every time you said Jay Leach, like, isn't that guy in the TV show? So this is a great story because it shows you just like the limits of the people who will be. You're not going to be. A rabble-rouser troublemaker is not going to be appointed by J.B. Pritzker or Michael Joseph Madigan. You got to go along to get along. And this is a collection of people who go along to get along.
I think Ben's trying to say, you got to know when to hold them. You know when to fold them.
We'll get to that too sometimes. Think you're slick stealing my lines, huh? So, yeah, it was a very, I liked it. I give Danny credit. And Christian, I think you were protesting a little too much, with your tweets. And you know how the game is played as much as Danny Mealopoulos does. But don't act surprised, folks, that Michael Madigan has a say and an influence. He's the most powerful Democrat, or second most. I think J.B. Pritzker has eclipsed him. So Michael Madigan's the second most powerful. So his way of saying, yeah, I approve of him. Yeah, he's cool. Yeah, you think Lori Lightfoot, Mayor Lightfoot, is going to put somebody on that, I don't know, Scott Wagasback wouldn't like? Do you follow what I'm saying? Like somebody that's really offensive to key people in her constituent.
How did you go from sharing stories over the years to deciding to write a book?
Good question, Mayor. Good question.
Good question, man.
Now, she is no Jay Leach. Speaking of, guys, I got my shit together here, so I'm going to play two interview.
I got to put the air conditioner on. Hold on. While you do that, put the air conditioner on. It's getting hot in here.
Hey, guys, we do the show 4 days a week. Sometimes they're just going to be a little weird and unorganized, all right? That's what you're hearing today. But we got two more pieces of this interview that J.B. Pritzker gave to Jay Leach, not Robin Leach.
Lifestyles of the J.B. Pritzker. Is that a horse farm?
You could use J.B. Pritzker for the life. You're right.
He'd be great on Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous.
Robin, I really like the Eagles. That's my J.B.
We're here at the Thompson Center.
That's a horrible Robin Leach. But anyway, all right, we got two more pieces to play from Jay Leach's interview on WMAY. Because he asks him about the hypocrite question, but first we're going to play this.
Governor, you've said that we cannot fully reopen Phase 5 until we have a vaccine or an effective treatment. By every indication, that's still months away. But we're also seeing quite a bit of pushback against these regulations. We know there are businesses here in Springfield and other parts of the state that have reopened against the guidelines that you've set out there. We know there are people who are pushing for more activities than what these guidelines call for. And if we have to go months until Phase 5, are you concerned that Illinoisans won't go along with you? They won't wait that long to get back to doing some of these events? And is there anything that can be done to prevent that if people are just adamant they're not going to follow those rules?
Well, again, the experts, the epidemiologists have been clear that you've got to follow the data here. We've got to do this in a phased fashion because the virus hasn't gone away. I know that we've done a great job. The people of Illinois have done a great job of following the mitigation. So many people are doing precisely what we had hoped they would do: wear a face covering, wash their hands, socially distance, physically distance. Those have been very important to getting where we are. To just throw out all of the mitigations, to just say that we should, open up every indoor facility for everybody to do whatever they want, will take us back. Look at the state of Arizona as one example of what's happened. When you fully open, guess what? You're going to get a spike, and it looks like they may have their healthcare system overwhelmed, and that's after, they suggested that they had defeated coronavirus. We don't defeat it until we get to a vaccine. Meanwhile, look, we've opened. Most of the economy is open now. I know that people want to focus on one or another thing like a gym or a restaurant that can't have indoor dining. But think about offices are open for business. Manufacturing is open for business. And I was a businessman before I became governor. I know how hard this moment is for businesses, and I'm the one pushing to try to get us open, but I'm also listening to the scientists and the data.
Governor J.B. Pritzker.
Yeah, that was a good question by your guy.
And it was an excellent reset that he did there. He reminded everybody who we were talking to. Governor J.B. Pritzker.
Yeah, that's good.
Good reset.
Oh, man, you guys, back in the day, I've said this back in the day after every show, I'd sit down to eat my delicious sandwich, and Dennis and Yoda, the station managers, would come in and critique my performance. And, well, I'm trying to eat my sandwich. And, what you should have done was, oh, thanks, guys. But yeah, reset was a big thing. Always reset. Help remind people who you're interviewing, and then I would do the time. Remember when I was doing the time and you guys were going, why are you doing the time? Everybody knows the time. I thought you're supposed to tell the time every now and then as we speak.
Yeah, I like the podcast better than the radio show.
Podcasts are way more fun.
Yeah.
But anyway, it was a good question, and I think the honest answer would have been, the answer that no politician will ever give, is that there's really nothing a politician can do to force people to do the right thing, abide by protocol. Mayor Lightfoot has gone through this. Remember when she was, I'm going to arrest you, I'm going to throw you in jail, and which we made fun of her for saying that, because like the last thing in the world you want to do is throw people in jail. That's just like an incubation cell for COVID. So you want to keep people out of jail. And by the way, aren't we supposed to try to keep people out of jails anyway? Aren't we heading in a different direction where we're not just like policing the hell out of everything, So you want to make a compelling case that this is a very serious health crisis, and people be smart. Now, it's really hard, and again, I'm coming back to the Republicans, it's really hard to play this game when the Republican Party, the leader of the Republican Party, is holding rallies in stadiums that's jamming people into them, wants as many people in there as he can without face masks. So it's really hard to continue to play to the sense that this is a serious crisis when Donald Trump, the president of the United States, is saying it's not. Oh, by the way, sign my waiver. So, yeah, we've been saying this from the get-go, D. Mixed messages everywhere, but ultimately it's up to people to abide by it, because I don't believe there's anything Governor Pritzker can do to force ordinary citizens to wear masks, to not to not to break social distancing protocol, etc. So it's a good question, and the honest answer is there's nothing he can do.
We will shut you down.
Here we go.
We will cite you, and if we need to, we will arrest you, and we will take you to jail.
Yeah, not one of the finer moments of the COVID pandemic here.
And Jay Marie, don't worry, we're going to get to Popcorn Gate in just moments. But we got one more clip to play here.
Popcorn Gate.
Earlier in the week, J.B. Pritzker was called a hypocrite by Illinois Republicans, and he responded on WMAY with one Jay Leach.
You today were called a, quote, total hypocrite by the Illinois Republican Party in a press release they sent out, pointing out that while you were calling for people to abide by these regulations, to not go into big crowds, to maintain social distance, that you yourself took part in these large protests where there was not social distancing. There were people not wearing masks. The crowds were clearly larger than 10 people. How do you respond to the claim of hypocrisy on your part?
Well, first, let's recognize that as governor, it's important for me to make my views known and to express the views of the majority of the people of the state. So it was important for me to show up, to talk to people. And sometimes, unfortunately, social distancing by other people isn't followed. I go, and if 1,000 people are there and I'm talking to them, or I want to march in a socially distant fashion, sometimes not everybody follows that. So that's the first thing I would say. The second thing is that we're responding to an enormous crisis in our state and around the country, and it's the crisis of young Black people dying at the hands of police. And it's important for us to address that problem in the state, not just by expressing ourselves in a peaceful fashion, expressing our First Amendment rights, but also actually in policy. And so I wanted to make sure that people understood that we are going to move in this direction to get real policy enacted in legislation, and that I will be one of the leaders of that.
Yeah, we talked about this earlier in the week, D, and I'm with them on that one. What has been going down for the last 2 weeks in the aftermath of the George Floyd murder has been a long time coming, and our country cannot run away from it anymore. And there were spontaneous demonstrations, and J.B. Pritzker, as the leader of the state of Illinois and as the leader of the Democratic Party, effectively had to show that he was with the protesters. I felt it was very important that he make that statement. Now, he did it. He followed the rules as much as he could. He had the mask on at all times. So he wasn't like Donnie Trump, pulled the mask off. He didn't tell the people there, keep no masks allowed at this protest. He didn't go around having the people at the protest sign waivers, not suing him. So I don't think he's the hypocrite. I think that the Republicans are the hypocrites on this one. And listen, I've wrestled with this. Like, should everybody have just stayed in their houses in the aftermath of George Floyd? Well, if you wanted to really be safe in regards to the pandemic, yes. Nobody should have gone out. Everybody should have stayed at home. Everybody should be in the equivalent of their attic overlooking the Brown line. But this was one of the most profound moments definitely in this century when it comes to civil rights, the relationship between police and the black community in this city, in this country. When it comes just to the relationship between black and whites in this country, this is just a very compelling moment. And it wasn't a frivolous exercise. Donald Trump holding a rally in which he says he doesn't want to have any social distancing protocol, no masks, that's frivolous. But J.B. Pritzker joining a group of protesters who are taking a stand against police violence and police brutality, an issue that's been around in the city of Chicago since I've been around, and that's ancient. I don't think that is frivolous at all. So, yes, I wish everybody had just stayed at home, but sometimes it's the forces that drive us are just too compelling.
Governor J.B. Pritzker, we do appreciate your time. Look forward to doing this again very soon. Thanks.
Nice
Thanks,
work.
Jim. Great to talk to you.
Nice work, Jay Leach.
Jay Leach, Dennis's resume will be in the mail any minute.
I'll go there, whatever, you know. All right, on to the live. Ben, we haven't had this in a while. We got a troll on the live stream chat.
Oh.
I know, everybody's been getting along and having a good old time. And then hashtag Super Trump, all caps.
Did he sign the waiver?
No, he hasn't signed the waiver.
Super Trump better sign that waiver.
He hasn't signed the waiver, but he did. Well, he may have. I don't know. But he did comment, libturd governors and COVID is dead.
Okay, all right. But you better sign the waiver or they won't let you in the rally. Okay? COVID may be quote-unquote dead. What's his name? Super Turd? Is that his name?
No, his name's Super Trump.
Oh, I thought I said it was Super Turd. Super Turd. I mean, you may have pronounced that COVID is dead, but if you want to go see your big guy, if you want to go to MAGA Nation, better sign that waiver.
All right, Ben, listen to this. Hear this? That's popcorn popping.
Oh, yeah, okay.
It's an awful sound effect, but it is an update on Popcorn Gate. That's right, Ben, don't worry. I got the popcorn going. We'll talk about this story, and we'll have a little after it. How about that? The following comes from the Chicago Sun-Times, and oh, you better believe it, it's Fran the Woman Spielman. The headline reads, Rush says cops lounged in his burglarized campaign office, the one of Bobby Rush, as nearby stores were looted. 13, count them 13, Chicago police officers, including 3 supervisors, slept on a couch, popped popcorn, and drank coffee in U.S. Representative Bobby Rush's Southside campaign office while looters had a field day in the same strip mall earlier this month. An outraged and emotional Mayor Lori Lightfoot, her voice breaking at times, joined Rush at a City Hall news conference on Thursday, apologizing to her former political nemesis for the unspeakable indignity and vowed to hunt down the officers responsible. I have a quote here from Mayor Lightfoot, but Ben, you've had enough time to wrap your head around this. Tell us your thoughts. Oh, popcorn's done.
Grab it real quick. That's a little burn. Hold on. I ate some of that burnt popcorn.
I've been there before.
Yeah, I've been following this story. I read 3 different accounts. Hey, did you notice the radio inflection? I read 3 different accounts.
That's correct.
Thank you, Mr. Mueller. And yeah, this one, by the way, on the front page of the Sun-Times is just a classic. It shows the cop flaked out on the couch.
And you see the bag of popcorn.
And to see is that a bag of popcorn?
Looks like it, yeah.
Yeah, but this story broke as we were leaving the airwaves yesterday, and you read it out. I had no idea what you remember that one. That was a great moment in live radio. I'll tell you what, who could have handled it a lot better? Jay Leach.
I'm telling you.
Fascinating story breaking from Chicago. We will investigate in a little while. First, Garth Brooks. Sorry, I don't even know if they play country music. Listen, when I think of all the stuff that's gone down this week, if I had to rank it, the police sleeping in Bobby Rush's office, and when you compare it to, let's say, police bashing protesters, police killing George Floyd, police just lining up and arresting people to keep them from protesting around Trump Tower. This would not even be in the top group. That said, it looks really horrible and it's just an embarrassment. Now, there's an interesting point that must be established and clarified. John Catanzara, who is the newly elected head of the Fraternal Order of Police, is quoted in the Sun-Times, and your good friend John Cass quotes him as well.
Okay. I've been really working hard behind the scenes to get John Cass on the Ben Joravsky show, all right? We've been going back and forth on emails. He's like, I don't know, this Ben guy, he's kind of tough. So please, just take it easy as you do.
Well, his column yesterday was one of the low points in Journal. It was a terrible column. Okay. But I got to give him, but on the other hand, he wrote a column today. He had a good line. I give him credit. When Johnny does a good line, I got to give him credit. He has a good line about the sleeping policeman. He goes, it was something like he's sleeping and dreaming of his rose bush in Mount Greenwood. I thought it was a pretty funny line. Anyway, so it looks absolutely horrific. But Catanzara insists, he claims, I'll read you the exact quote. This is the newly elected president of the Fraternal Order of Police. If I had been a police officer, I would never have voted for him in a million years, that's for sure. The guy's a huge Trump supporter. I'm not quite sure why they think it's a good strategy in the city of Chicago to have as your president a Trump supporter. The city voted like 88% against Trump, but whatever. Here we go. And this is what John Catanzara told Franz Billman of the Sun-Times, quote, here we go. The police showed up late in the evening after all the looting is done. The office is damaged. There's nothing left there. And they were asked by, initially, I'm told, a boss. But now I'm being told the boss got a phone call from Bobby Rush's staffers and were encouraged to go to the office and hang out there and make themselves at home and keep it from being totally destroyed. So he's claiming that somebody with Bobby Rush's office invited the police officers to make themselves at home. I doubt this. Somehow or other, it's just, I doubt
they did
this.
make themselves at home.
Well, I know
That's
they made
for
themselves at home, and they look pretty foolish, and they made the department look really bad, and it really irritated the hell out of Lori Lightfoot. But I'm just curious, I would love to hear Bobby Rush's response. Like, did somebody in his office invite them to come in and make themselves at home, and by that, eat the popcorn and drink the coffee? Was that the case? If it's not the case, then
Bobby Rush was pretty upset about that popcorn being popped.
So it based on what Bobby Rush said yesterday, it does not look as though what the Fraternal Order of Police is saying is accurate. I'd like to see Bobby Rush directly deal with that issue, but no, it looks just terrible. It's like, and God, the whole issue of the leader of the Fraternal Order of Police just always coming to the defense of police. Now, I suppose if you're a rank and file cop, that's what you want. But at some point, if you're going to have any credibility, you have to be willing to criticize bad behavior by police officers. It does not make the union look good. And you have to have some kind of objectivity. I understand you're the head of the police union and you feel compelled to protect your contractual rights. I understand that's where you're coming from as the head of the police union, but you also have to realize that you exist in a larger universe where you have to deal with people who already don't trust you immensely. And I'm being as euphemistic as I can, and are really put off by the fact that you go around wearing, with MAGA, blazing yourself with MAGA. You're a Trump supporter in a city that despises and reviles Trump, and for good reason. I don't know. I just do not understand the mindset of police officers in the city that they would move so far to the right, to be so far distant from just the ordinary Chicagoans that they have to live with and work with. And I would really hope that the police would just think about it a little bit, about how they fit in with the rest of the city. And to have a leader like this gentleman who is so far to the right and proudly so far to the right, I just don't think, I don't know, I can't see how that works to the union's benefit, just on a very practical matter. But having said all that, I really am curious. I'd love to hear Bobby Rush's response to that direct assertion. I'd like to see any evidence whatsoever, any evidence in the world that there was any Bobby Rush staffer who told police officers they were free to make themselves at home in the office. I'd love to see any evidence of that whatsoever. And if there is evidence, we must address it and, see if there's some justification for those police officers. And if there's no evidence of it, if John Canizera, the head of the Fraternal Order of Police, just made it up, then he should apologize and should confess to it. But he put the issue out there in today's Sun-Times that they were welcomed in by someone with Bobby Rush's office, so I'd like to see that one addressed.
All right, we got one more Mayor Lightfoot quote to read, and then I'm going to ask you a question. All right. Oh, by the way, I'm popping more popcorn. You said that last batch was burnt. All right, hopefully this one won't be. By the way, it's Pop Secret, your favorite. All right. Lori Lightfoot said, and the more quotes I read in here, the more all of you who said that she was a cop, boy, it's sounding true. Okay, just saying. All right, so it says here, quote, involving the officers who are hanging out eating popcorn, quote, "You know who you are. You know what you did. Don't make us come find you."
All right, well, I appreciate her cracking down on these officers who were sleeping on the couch, etc. But I'm more concerned about the officers who were roughing up the protesters at the Wabash Bridge to protect Trump Tower. You get what I'm saying, D? I'm like, this is an embarrassment. This picture on the front page of the Sun-Times and all over the internet, and the Tribune had it as well, makes police officers look bad. So I understand why we're focused on it. But again, of all the stuff that went down over the weekend, the cops just sleeping in Bobby Rush's office, I think I'm not sure it's in the top 5 of all the police behavior that went down over the last week. I don't know. Maybe our listeners disagree with me and they get popcorn's down. I think what this was, Bobby Rush and Mayor Lori Lightfoot finding a way to make up. And Bobby Rush said some pretty outrageous things about Lori Lightfoot, if you recall, during the campaign.
Well, that was the question I was going to ask you. It said here in the Fran Spielman piece. By the way, check out the Fran Spielman Show. Fantastic program. Chicago Sun-Times. Go download it. She says here that Lightfoot and Bobby Rush, nemesis. They use the word there, nemesis. What do you think about that?
Yeah,
a lot of people on the live stream chat are wondering.
Yeah, Bobby Rush. First of all, okay, Bobby Rush has had an interesting transition politically, a transformation. Back in the day, he was a Black Panther. And I remember when he first got elected, that's how old I am. Like, God, I'm so old. He was elected in 1983 when Harold Washington was elected. He was considered a radical. He ousted a machine incumbent. I think it was William Barnett. I believe that's who it was. I don't know if there's anybody out there who remembers.
Frank!
No, I don't know if this is on the internet. His second ward alderman, the incumbent, was a Jane Byrne loyalist, a black man who was a Jane Byrne loyalist. And Bobby Rush ousted him. And then Bobby Rush ousted Charlie Hayes to become congressman. Charlie Hayes was a Harold Washington ally. So Bobby Rush has been, he emerged politically as sort of a radical, if you will, a Black Panther. And he was a big supporter of Harold Washington's. And that's part of the reason why he was got to be Congress. But over the years, he's gotten a little more conservative. He supported he supported Rahm in Rahm's re-elections. He supported Bill Daley the first time around, and then he went big time for Tony Preckwinkle against Lori Lightfoot and said some inflammatory things during the campaign, which I thought were out of
Blood is on her hands.
Yeah, I just thought it was unwarranted. And listen, I was not a huge supporter of. I had my issues with both candidates in that election for a lot of different reasons, but I just thought he went too far. And but you know, Lori Lightfoot and Bobby Rush have found a common cause here, so this is a chance for them to do this public display of solidarity. And Bobby Rush said, what did he say? We were in the Lori Lightfoot era or something like that, really praising Lori Lightfoot. Mm-hmm. So now he's moved from Rahm Emanuel to Bill Daley to Tony Preckwinkle to Lori Lightfoot. So to me, there's a lot of politics going on here, and this is Bobby Rush's and Lori Lightfoot's way of having a public display of unity.
So there you are, everybody. The latest in what's going on locally. We got a little more information from Governor J.B. Pritzker. And Popcorn Gate continues. The Ben Joravsky Show will continue as well. We want to remind everybody once again, you can find us on social media at Benny J Show, BENNY, the letter J Show, on all forms of social media. Go check us out. Send us a message. You can send us an email, bennyjshow@gmail.com. Send us an email. We would love to hear from you. You can reach out to us via phone. That's right. The Ben Joravsky Show has a phone number. We'd love for you to leave us a voicemail. We'll play it if you watch your mouth and aren't like crazy. 708-658-4788. Reach out to us whenever way you can. We'd love to hear from you. And be sure to check out this weekend's Benny J bonus interviews. Boy, I tell you what, I am just hungry. I am just craving popcorn. It's like the third bag I've made in the last.
The last one was really good, by the way.
Okay, good. Sorry about that burnt one. I'm a fan of burnt popcorn, so all to myself, I guess.
Do you like it when the kernels, like you bite into a kernel?
Oh, that's the worst.
Yeah. By the way, did you notice Stacey Davis Gates, who will be on the show next week, she changed her profile picture on Facebook? Did you notice that, D?
Yeah, to Orville Redenbacher.
Well, I didn't know who he was.
Oh, you didn't know that?
No, I mean, I'm the last guy to catch anything. So I said, what the SDG doing here? Who is this guy? I didn't know who the guy was. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, find Stacey Davis Gates on Facebook and check out that picture. Her profile picture, Orville Redenbacher, after all of this is going on. That's awesome. And also, check out the Benny J bonus interviews. All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, Chicago Sun-Times editor Rummana Hussain will join us. We're going to be talking about Popcorn Gate and so much more. Don't go anywhere. It's the binge. Popcorn's done. Well, not
Social
yet.
distance.
Still hot.
No. Divide it into two separate cups. Okay.
Will do. It's the Ben Joravsky Show. Oh my, still.
What was that?
YouTube. Still live from Ben's attic.
correct.
Editorial. Bow, wow, wow, wow.
Governor J.B. Pritzker, we do appreciate your time. Look forward to doing this again very soon. Thanks.
Thanks, Jim. Great to talk to you.
That's correct.
Wow, wow, wow. Editorial. Bow, wow, wow, wow.
That's the story from the editorial board.
But I tell you, if you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, and you ain't black.
That's correct.
Hey, welcome back to the Ben Joravsky Show, live from Ben's attic.
Every Friday, Rummana Hussain, editor-columnist, let's not forget the columnist part of this title, comes on the show, talks about the issues of the day. And Rummana, I apologize. I usually send you the cheat sheet. I didn't send you the cheat sheet. So we do this thing. I call almost all my guests pretty much before any show, and I run through, what are we going to talk about? What's on your mind? And then I try to be dutiful about it, but I didn't send you the cheat sheet, so I apologize. I hope you remember. I have a list.
It's okay.
Okay. I've been forgiven. All right, let's start with the first thing I wanted to talk about. I've been sending you articles on this front all day or all week. The uprising in newsrooms. This is an interesting phenomenon from an old goat like me who's been around forever, and I'm watching slowly journalists, really younger journalists, their attitude toward who they are as journalists, as public figures, has changed. I'd like to think I'm with them on this one 100% because I've always strafed at the confines of, what journalists are supposed to do and the role they're supposed to play. But it's kind of shocking to see so many young journalists like rebelling against their editors or publicly condemning their newspapers for headlines or stories that they were. We've seen this happen at the New York Times, the Pittsburgh Gazette. What's your thoughts when you watch this development, Rummana?
Well, I think it's a good thing in many ways because I'm Generation X. And I obviously I think newsrooms in general, we talk about equality and we call out other people in equality. But I think if you talk to most people who are journalists of color, they will tell you they don't feel that way. And I have expressed this with my colleagues who are also journalists of color. And, it's all said and done in a lot of these places where people are well-meaning, but there's still that white power structure in a lot of these newsrooms. And people don't seem to get it when you try to tell them. And we have a person of color caucus in our newsroom. And we've had discussions with management and, other newsroom leaders. And I have to tell you, one of the meetings that we had when we came out, another woman who was a journalist of color, who's the same age as I am, she was like, she was like so shocked at the things that were being said. And she was and I told her, I'm like, I think you're just shocked. And she said she was a little uncomfortable. And I said that's because we're not used to it. We just stayed quiet whenever anything I mean, I've spoken out before, but I feel like it wasn't with the bullhorn. It was just kind of like, oh, that was wrong, or I just kind of like, meekly say something. But I do think I do admire that, the younger journalists of color are speaking out and are more vocal about things they deal with. Because I have dealt with a lot of inequality in newsrooms personally. There are a lot of microaggressions in newsrooms when you're especially a woman of color, and a lot of things, a lot of times people will use you when they need to like tout the numbers that they have of, the journalists of color in the newsroom, but you're not necessarily treated the same way as all the white male editors are. I mean, that's just a fact. And I think a lot of people of color will tell you that. So I think that's a good thing. I mean, people talk about like, is there this backlash, and this is, in terms of like people just calling anybody out, and not, is there any sort of, do you think people are being unfairly accused? I mean, I'm sure that could happen. Maybe there's just a difference of opinion with the journalists of color and their editor. But I do think a lot of the things that you're hearing, I don't know if you've been following a lot of the Twitter chatter that's been going on, but there's a lot of news organizations who consider themselves woke, and they've always been championships of diversity, and they're being called out. BuzzFeed is one of these organizations that probably had a pretty good record of having journalists of color and different people from different backgrounds in their newsrooms, but they put something out. This is obviously in light of George Floyd's death. They put something out talking about how they're always fighting for equality. And then right when they wrote that, a couple of former BuzzFeed journalists of color all talked about their experiences, and they were pretty vocal about what specifically happened and how they were treated. This also happened with Refinery 29. That's an online publication that is also, prides itself on being very up to date and hip and woke, and they were called out too. So it's interesting. I mean, frankly, I'm surprised nobody in Chicago media has been called out yet. I don't know. There's, and that's not to say that, there's a lot of journalists and a lot of, journalists, white journalists, I should say, that really do care and they are trying, but I don't think enough has been done. And I think a lot of people who aren't journalists of color and are in the business, they just don't get it because it doesn't affect them. Mm-hmm. A lot of newsrooms, I've been in newsrooms, like if there was one South Asian that was hired, they would never hire me because they already had one. Why have another one? Like that was the way I was treated. I've been in news organizations where they already hired one person, and I was told even by people who work there, they're like, oh, they're not going to hire you because they already have an Indian person. Mm-hmm. Or, that's the way they thought. Like if they had one person that represented one, group, that they did what they needed to do. Meanwhile, they kept on hiring the same white guys that looked the same and dressed the same. So, and I've seen that happen over and over again. And I mean, you work for the Reader, and that is considered a progressive paper. And it was only until recently that you guys actually had, people of color leading the paper, right? I mean, it's historically been a pretty all-white staff, hasn't it? Or nearly all-white staff?
I'm trying to think back in the day if there were any black employees at the Reader, and I can't think of any at the moment. Of course, I'm in the attic, and I'm trying to go back to 30 years ago, so I apologize if I'm overlooking someone. But no, well, you're talking about straight up hiring, and the Reader,
hiring,
the Reader back in the day was all white.
Yeah, or even people in leadership positions. I mean, most of my career has been, I was a 1-year resident at the Tribune. Now, I guess I can say it's safe to say most of my career has been at the Sun-Times. I mean, I've always had white bosses, and it just becomes like a very bro kind of culture. I mean, even though people don't try to make it a bro culture, it's like there's a white guy in charge, and he has like 2 other white guy friends, and all they do is hang out with each other. And I was telling Mick, who was also a white guy, that I don't want to hang out with them. So a lot of deals get made, when they're all hanging out with each other and just like palling around. And I'm like, most people of color don't want to hang out with these white guys after hanging out with them all day in the newsroom. And so it's like they're all friends, and it's like they're all chummy. And not to say that I'm not friends with any white guy journalists. I mean, I married one, but it's a different dynamic. And one of the things that a lot of white people don't get is they don't have to work and be in white spaces all the time. I mean, and be in spaces that they're not the dominant, group. It's very rare for a white person to feel uncomfortable. Like we're used to catering to the overall white world. An example, a lot of journalists, like at least people who are South Asian, when they're in a newsroom, they pronounce their names totally right just to make white people comfortable. And I've actually asked journalists who are also South Asian, I'm like, I'm not pronouncing your name like that. I know you do that because you want to make it easier. I'm just going to pronounce it the way it's supposed to be pronounced. So I'm just saying it's like these little things that you learn as a person of color, and our newsrooms reflect the larger problems of society. We're not immune from it. So I don't know. I kind of welcome it. I mean, it'll be interesting to see if there's any changes that would be made.
Well, what I was struck by was not so much the work dynamic that you were addressing here, was the open revolt at the New York Times over an editorial. And just to help, I don't know if we've talked about this on the show, so I'm just going to back up and just explain to our listeners a little bit what I'm talking about. The New York Times op-ed page ran an editorial by a senator from Arkansas, a Republican named Tom Cotton. I'm not making that up. That's his name. In this editorial, he advocated that Donald Trump send in the troops to various cities where there was unrest in order to quell the unrest. That's how you deal with these people. And the New York Times had basically there was a revolt of the staff. I can't recall ever seeing anything like this. If Rummana, if you can remember anything like I've never public revolt. Twitter, people put it out on Twitter. First of all, I actually read the op-ed. It's one of the stupidest things I've read. I've read a lot of stupid things lately, but there was an open revolt. Not only did they back off on the editorial, but it ended up with the op-ed editor, James Bennett, I believe his name is. I could be screwing it up. Stepping down. Yeah. Because he acknowledged that the proper protocol was not followed in the way they edited it. It was rushed in. And I'd never seen anything like that. Reporters revolting over the substance of something that was in their newspaper. There's individual reporters down through the ages who've just had it and could not deal with some of the idiocy, as they saw it, of things written in their newspapers and have left on their own. I'm thinking of the great Lou Palmer back in the 70s who left the Chicago Daily News. But I've never seen a newsroom revolt this way. So this is something different. I don't know how widespread it'll be. I don't know if it would happen at the Sun-Times or the Tribune. Could be happening at the Tribune if they've been putting so many stupid things on their editorial page down through the years. I'm surprised there hasn't been a revolt there. But I've never seen anything like it. Have you?
No, I haven't. I mean, but I think this is kind of reflective of what's happening across the country, don't you? But yeah, in the newsroom for sure. But we're seeing changes or people stepping down in different organizations, like full board. And just, even little things like The Bachelor is going to be an African American now. I mean, it's like people have been calling everybody out, and all of a sudden the Oscars going to have all these like rule changes about diversity. So I don't know. I think the newsrooms are reflecting, what's happening in newsrooms is reflecting what's happening all across the country, because a lot of people are stepping down too in leadership positions. You've seen the theater company in Chicago. There have been people stepping down in various, leadership positions because they feel like they didn't do enough diversity or didn't, respond to but the newsroom thing, I've never seen anything like it, because there's been things that make me cringe, even at the Sun-Times. I remember when I came to the Sun-Times, a former colleague, a former journalist now, he works on the other side. He works as a politician. He told me, don't look at the editorials because it's going to make you really mad. I mean, they equated Palestinians, they basically called them terrorists. There was just no nuance when it came to discussions in the Middle East. It was just like, this side is terrorist and so, I mean, those made me cringe. But you know what I mean? Like I look back and I'm like, what could I have done? Should I, if I revolted, I mean, I probably would have lost my job because you heard about people, when they revolted or said too much. And I think that's what was watered down to people from my generation too. It's like, you don't want to rock the boat too much. You got a job. You're like one of the few people, journalists of color, you want to keep that job. And now I think it's turning a little because I think there's a lot of people, I guess you'd call them allies, who are white journalists who are saying, hey, what they're saying is right. So I think they have a lot of solidarity in that way. So yeah, I've never seen anything like it. I like I said, I'm waiting for something like this to happen in a Chicago newsroom, but I haven't. But I have been talking about inequality for a long time, and a lot of journalists of color feel like, in terms of hiring, we have not done a good job in journalism, and at least in mainstream news. I can tell you that in Chicago, and when it comes to pay, there's definitely inequality there. I can tell you that too.
All right, let's.
So I don't know. It's interesting.
Yeah, I still have fun with this part. All the young crusading journalists out there who are taking a whole new approach to what their paper publishes, they still have. I'm sorry, man. Some of the stuff.
No, I mean,
I'm just laughing because I just think you ask a journalist who'd you vote for. Oh, man, I can't tell you that. That's secret. Oh, but you can tell me every freaking other thing you believe in, huh? You got to tell me who you vote for. Journalists clutch to these things, Rummana. I've always made fun of it, man, but they clutch to these things.
Journalists do tend to have a lot of opinions, and I have to tell you this too. Like, just because it's a young journalist and they say something, it doesn't mean that I necessarily agree with them 100% of the time. That's one thing to point out too. There's a lot of differences even amongst people of color and journalists of color. So I don't know. I think this is a turning point. I just hope this makes news managers and people who are in leadership positions in news organizations really take note. Because before it was just like, we'll listen to you tell them about why it's important to have diversity, and, it's like a nice conversation and everybody goes on their merry way. But now I think like people are being held accountable. So I think it's an interesting time for sure.
All right, you mentioned something that had me smiling, and I wrote it down. You were talking about woke. I've always the whole notion of woke is always just shaking my head at it because, first of all, like I sent this to you as a what's the opposite of woke? I dealt with this when Barack Obama was recommending that Democrats not be so woke, and I took issue with that because Barack Obama on the local level was always supportive of the powerful mayors that we had that were shoving stupid things down our throats. Mayor Daley, he was an ally of. Mayor Rahm, he's the reason we have Mayor Rahm. So it's like, if we're not woke, what are we? We're asleep. I mean, to me, literally the opposite of woke is asleep. And if you're asleep, they're just going to do whatever they want to you, which is what mayors do in the Chicago, by and large, whatever they want. At least since Harold Washington was mayor. So when you use the term woke, what's your definition of it? And, what's your general attitude about this notion that people are too woke, shouldn't be so woke, should go back to sleep? Talk about it a little bit, Rummana.
Well, I think it's important to be woke. There's definitely some people who are over woke, where they have to tell you about how woke they are.
Yeah.
I think being woke is a good thing, in my opinion. It just basically means you're in touch and you are paying attention, and you're not just looking at the way you see things, you're looking at the way other people may say things. So I think it's important to be woke. But there are definitely people who are just performing. It's called performative wokeness, where you just like talking about how woke you are, but you necessarily aren't woke. And that's what I think that's one of the things also with in light of the George Floyd murder. I don't know if you've been paying attention, but Twitter also, a lot of people are like talking about how woke they are, and then people are like, actually, you're not that woke. Remember this time in 5 years ago when you treated me like this? So there's been a lot of people being called out for like just being called woke, but not really being woke. So it's a good thing, I think. I think it just means you're paying attention and reading and, listening. I think one of the things that I think people need to realize in light of the George Floyd murder and the protests that are coming out is for us to be listening to the African American community. I mean, I'm a person of color, but I'm not a Black person of color. So I think one of the things important is when you're woke is not just talking about it, but listening to people also, and people who have these experiences. So being woke, I know a lot of people think it's just about spouting off, but it's not. It's about shutting up sometimes too, which I don't think a lot of people who are woke know that.
All right. Let's move on. By the way, I don't know if you saw this thing when you were talking about people who think they're woke and then they're embarrassed. Have you been following Jimmy Fallon's the latest? I didn't. This was not part of the cheat sheet. Yeah. And
yeah, I did.
Yeah, and it's
although he handled it very. I don't know if you saw his response. I thought he did a decent job handling it. The blackface incident was from 20 years ago. And so not to defend it, it's definitely wrong. I don't know why anybody would do that. I mean, I just stand in front of, when I'm putting my makeup on, it just never dawned on me to put on blackface for any sort of reason. So I just don't get what would make someone think that that's okay to do. And I know a lot of people say, oh, I never knew there was anything wrong with blackface, but I can tell you this, and I've told this to my husband too. Do you ever watch Give Me a Break? That there's with Nell Carter. It was like in the 80s.
Yeah, Give Me a Break.
Yeah. So anyway, Nell Carter was in it, and they had a whole episode about how one of the daughters of the show, Nell Carter was this maid, and she took care of this family, and she was also kind of like a mother figure to these white girls in the family. And the youngest daughter felt like she wasn't getting enough attention because Joey Lawrence was all of a sudden in the show, and so to get back at Nell Carter, she put Joey Lawrence in blackface and had him dancing around because she was mad at her. And I mean, now that I look back, I'm like, why did the people in the show even do that? But the whole point of the show was about how offensive blackface was. And Nell Carter she started crying, and she talked about how this was like the worst thing that this daughter could have done. And this is like 1983, 84. So I just feel like this has been discussed like 30, 40 years ago. So you don't understand. I mean, I'm just saying from someone that's my age, Generation X, it's like, why would you do that? Like Ashton Kutcher is also going around talking about Black Lives Matter. But if anybody who paid attention, Indians know, a couple of years ago, like not even 10 years ago, he did an ad for Pop Chips. It was like a chip commercial, and he was in brownface doing an Indian accent. He had brown makeup on and was imitating Indian people, and they pulled the ad. But it's like, why would you do something like that? Like, are you that? Do people not know? These are people who are around my age, and so you would think that they would know, but obviously people don't know, and that's one of the things that's making me mad. Also around this time, it's like people are all of a sudden discovering that racism is bad and that there's been inequality all these years. It's like they've never read a book before. They're like, can you give me a list of books to read about the Black experience? And I don't know, maybe it's because I grew up in a mostly white world and I always thought like the different voices, but I mean, I read Malcolm X when I was 17. Okay, I know I grew up in a suburb near Chicago, so maybe I felt like I thought that stuff out, but I don't know how you could be a person in this day and age, and given, George Floyd is not the most, there's been so many unarmed Black men who've been killed by police in the last 5 years, or even last year or two, that we've heard about. And, I think it's interesting that this is really making people wake up. And I kind of feel like, they were asleep. A lot of people were asleep. Like they never noticed that there was racism. I don't know. I think there's some people who've always paid attention and know that this is inequality always existed. But all of a sudden, I mean, everybody's reacting. Even NASCAR got rid of the Confederate flag, which I have no idea why they were flying it. And again, when I was younger, I watched, I didn't watch it, but I had friends who liked Dukes of Hazzard. And I never knew why the General Lee was offensive. And I never knew that the Confederate flag was offensive. This is when I was a kid, really young, not even a teenager. And the older I got, I was like, yeah, why did they have that Confederate flag on the car? And it was acceptable. And I don't know how waving around that flag can still be acceptable today.
Whoa.
And for NASCAR to take it down, it's just, I guess even NASCAR is reacting.
Yeah.
So.
Give a shout out to Bubba Wallace. He got that going. And Dale Earnhardt Jr. Took a big step for that. And once Dale Earnhardt Jr. weighed in, that was it for the Confederate flag. By the way, it wasn't that long ago that the Confederate flag was being waved proudly. About it's another universe ago in terms of where we are politically. But when the Operation Gridlock movement erupted in about April, whenever that was, when the MAGA hat crowd started revolting against Democratic governors and the stay-at-home orders in Michigan, the protesters were waving Confederate flags. In Chicago, there was a Confederate flag at one of the protests, I believe, in Illinois. They had signs with swastikas on it. So the MAGA hat crowd feels very free up until recently to let their freak flag fly, if you will. We'll see if they change their tune going forward. I've been talking a lot today, having a lot of fun at Donald Trump's expense. He deserves every bit of it. He's proclaiming that COVID-19 is over, Rummana, and he's going to have his first rally in Tulsa on June 19th. Very offensive to black people in this country. He doesn't care. But the part I've been harping on is he's making the attendees sign waivers so that they can't sue him. They waive their right to sue him if they get COVID. And I'm like, what a coward you are, Donnie Trump. Is it over or is it over? Are you unafraid of a little COVID? Well, are you making your supporters, your most adoring fans, are they like risking their lives, to come listen to your nonsense? Anyway, so we'll see how far removed the Confederate flag is in the future. You know what I mean? I wouldn't be surprised if someone brings a Confederate flag to Donald Trump's rally in Tulsa.
I wouldn't either. But I mean, there's some people who know what it represents, so they're okay with it. I think that's what it is.
Yeah. All right, let's.
Or don't want to hear it.
Let's switch to the local story that we've been talking about. It's been on the front page. It's the front page of the Chicago Sun-Times. I'll show you here. You can see the front page of the policeman sleeping on a couch in Congressman Bobby Rush's office. We've been talking a lot about this. So what's your just general reaction to this story, Rummana?
I mean, I think I guess I was, shocked like everybody else. Like, how could this happen? But at the same time, not surprised. You're just kind of like, why? I kind of feel like at this point, police officers should know that there's cameras all over the place, and especially in a congressman's office, you would think that there would be cameras sitting around while they're sitting around, looking at their phones and popping popcorn. I know we talked about this off air, that the union, the head of the police union, was saying that they were actually invited to kind of keep watch on Bobby Rush's office while, I think this was like June 1st. I think it was a Monday. And it was like maybe hours after, like, the same businesses were looted in the mall, or the little strip mall area. So that's the question. I know we talked about it. I don't know if Bobby Rush has been asked about that since, whether someone from his office did actually ask them to come in and hang out and watch the place and make themselves, I think, quote, feel at home. Is that what they said? And so I think the defense of the officers is that they were doing what they were asked to do. But at the same time, I was thinking the number of officers in there. Did you really need 13 officers kind of hanging out in a politician's office if you were asked to watch over it? That's just a question I have. I would think maybe 2 or 3 at the most. It seemed like there was probably way too many officers in there.
Yeah, I mean,
there's shootings where there's only 2 officers involved, or 2 officers are handling a call of shots fired, and you wonder if they were asked to babysit the office, why did you need at least 13 in there, including leaders, because you see the white shirts in there.
Yeah, I'm really I'm waiting for Bobby Rush to respond directly to what the Fraternal Order Police President Ken Arana says, because if they did invite him in, that sort of undercuts the the anger of Bobby Rush and Lori Lightfoot. If they didn't invite him in, then the Fraternal Order of Police owes the city of Chicago an apology. Canizero owes an apology to the city of Chicago for just putting out bad information. And that's the one part of the story that, I mean, if you're going to follow his logic, then they were invited in, and then it became sort of like the resting place for any weary officer who's been dealing up all night. This is their version of things. It's so funny because when so many police officers, when I talk to them, they're so cynical about anybody's defense. You know what I'm saying? They're the most cynical, some of the most cynical people I know. Oh, yeah, right. Yeah, right. That's, you know what I mean? They don't trust you. They doubt you. This guy gives out an explanation that is so wacky. Oh, well, you know, we have permission from, they said, have the popcorn, have the coffee. So it's like drop-in center. It's become the drop-in center. And that's his official. Then he's like, we're protecting this place. Okay, that's your official explanation? They asked you to come in and establish a front to protect the place? You know? So
yeah, my question is, do you really need 13 people like all hanging out at once? I mean,
well, they're really giving it a lot of protection.
I don't think it needed that many people. That's just my 2 cents. If that was in fact the argument.
Yeah, I'm like I said, I'm really looking forward. I hope that doesn't get lost in the shuffle. You know, to respond to the official defense of the Fraternal Order of Police. All right, we're going to head out the door. Before we do, Rummana's recommendation every Friday on the Ben Joravsky Show. What's your recommendation for this weekend?
Probably I'm going to recommend the Spike Lee movie. I think it's called The Five Bloods. Is that what it's called? Yeah, it's about these Vietnam vets, African-American Vietnam vets, who go back to Vietnam to get their friends' remains, their friend who was killed in Vietnam, and then also try to get some treasure or some gold that was buried. I don't know who it was supposed to be for, but they're going to try to do that. And I think there's one of the actors in there, African American. You know, obviously it's all African American cast. At least the leads are. And one of them, who's a Vietnam vet, and one of the actors is a Trump supporter. And I think he has a MAGA hat on when he meets his friends for their, like, you know,
That's
trip.
not the actor.
So that should be
the
pretty.
character he plays.
The character.
Yes,
sorry,
let's get that one straight. You threw that guy under the bus. Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
I think that I was reading an interview with the actor. God, why am I forgetting his name? Because he's in a lot of Spike Lee movies. But he was talking about, he's like, he stressed that I voted the opposite of Donald Trump. And he said, oh, I got to wear the hat too. So I heard he does a really good job in the movie. And it sounds good. And the other show I was watching, I told you about already, was Mrs. America, about the fight for the ERA amendment, which is pretty interesting because I didn't know about some of the battles that were being fought. Obviously, I know a lot of the characters that they show within the the series, but I didn't know every single player in that. So it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, the actor's name Delroy Lindo. He's been in several Spike Lee movies in Crooklyn. And he had made it clear in the interview that he personally was not for Donald Trump, but it's tough. Yeah, you're an actor. You got to take the role. And I'll be watching it too. We'll probably be talking a lot next week. Sergio Mims will be coming in just to tell folks. And we're going to do a whole conversation on The Five Bloods and also Spike Lee movies in general. The great Sergio Mims, movie expert, will be in talking about that. Rummana, be safe, be sound. Have a great weekend. Give a hug to Mick for me, all right?
I will. Thanks.
All
Bye.
Right. Great. Rummana saying every Friday in the Ben Joravsky Show, editor, columnist for the Chicago Sun-Times, talking about the issues of the day.
Rummana's awesome.
Yes, she is. She's a great friend of the Ben Joravsky Show. Any updates before we head out the door?
Well, first off, we want to remind everybody to check out our Benny J bonus interviews. Every weekend we do it, 5 a.m., Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. Something for you to download and listen to. And if you've went through those Benny J bonus interviews, maybe you got nothing going on, and you're just like, man, I'm going to listen to every single thing that the Ben Joravsky Show has published. Well, if you got time, we got content, all right? Go check it out, both Chicago Sun-Times and Chicago Reader websites. Yes, and wherever else you download your favorite podcasts, go check them out. And live streamers, I know we don't live stream these. You got to go download them, all right? We really hope you do that. And before we go, we got one more update. By the way, got more popcorn going.
Popcorn.
Sorry, I'm eating all your popcorn here in the attic.
Yeah, you didn't fill up my little bowl.
All right. The following comes from the Chicago Sun-Times and Matthew Hendrickson. Do you know who that is? I've never seen Matthew Hendrickson in the Sun-Times studio.
Maybe you have and just walked right by it. But it's been so long since we did the studio. Dave.
Matthew, have I seen you in the break room or something?
Yes.
Well, we'll have some popcorn next time. All right, so, the world as we know it is flipped upside down. We got COVID-19, coronavirus. We got the George Floyd incident going on. Apparently we got police officers sleeping in offices while protests are going on. So, hey, how about we talk about this? Jussie Smollett.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, we should have...
Just what we wanted to hear, right,
Rummana,
guys?
Rummana and I talked about Smollett Gate. How many times? Oh,
popcorn's done. There you go.
Anyway, what's the latest on Smollett Gate?
Following comes from the Chicago Sun-Times, and hot damn, this popcorn's delicious. A Cook County judge Friday allowed the latest criminal case against actor Jussie Smollett to move forward, ruling that the changes did not constitute double jeopardy. In a hearing streamed live on YouTube, Judge James Lynn said that Smollett's previous case never led to an admission of guilt and that the former Empire actor was never punished. So the new charges would not violate his rights against double jeopardy.
Man, a legal technicality stumbled. So if Jussie Smollett admitted guilt, that would have closed the deal. But because he didn't admit guilt, he's vulnerable to being charged again. Correct? Yes.
That's correct.
Wow. Too bad. Breaking news. Rummana and I could have talked about that. Oh, next week.
For the love of God, Jussie Smollett, go away from the news! Sick of reading about this guy. Holy crap, it's been like a year and a half.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of, there's some relevant parts of the Jussie Smollett story that are still important today. But anyway, we haven't talked Jussie Smollett in a long time.
Thank God. Hey, and we want to thank everybody who listened on the live stream chat. Jay Marie, Brianna, Pat Rod, Fred, Michael Girardi. Dude, Michael Girardi, you're the man, by the way. Thank you
by
for
the way, I
sending
got to
us
give a shout out to Frank. He sent me a text.
Frank!
And yes, I was right. Just... what a memory, huh? William Barnett, he looked it up, and William Barnett, Bobby Rush defeated William Barnett when he was elected alderman. That was in 1983, before Dennis was born.
My coworker is a nerd. All right, everybody. That's it. Make sure to download those Benny J bonus interviews if you want to, and check us out on social media at Benny J Show. Send us an email, bennyjshow@gmail.com, and you can always leave us a voicemail. Leave us a funny one. Do an impression or something. 708-658-4788. That number again, 708 I'm no Jay Leach, but that number again, 708-658-4788.
That's correct.
Jay Leach. Well, I'm going to tell you something, D.
What?
Something that Frank, Rummana, and Jay Leach all agree. You did a great job. Give yourself a raise. Take it out of petty cash. See you Tuesday, everybody.
Woo!
Governor J.B. Pritzker is with us live this afternoon. Governor, we greatly appreciate your time. Great to talk to you this afternoon.
Great to talk to you, Jim. Great to be here.
But I tell you, if you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, and you ain't black.
That's correct.
Governor J.B. Pritzker, we do appreciate your time. Look forward to doing this again very soon. Thanks.
Thanks, Jim. Great to talk to you.